All right, here we are with the second episode of Inside the Minds. Today we're here with Bryan Smith, who is a financial planner, but we're going to get into more on that terminology here in just a little bit. Bryan, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
You're more than welcome.
Alrighty, so we're going to jump right into it and just kind of start with what got you into financial planning.
Well, I've been doing it for 30 years, so I pretty much right out of college, I decided to get into the financial planning business. So most of it was just fate and curiosity, and then once you start digging into it, it became an addiction.
Right, so when you went to college, where did you go to college?
University of Arkansas.
Perfect. So in Arkansas, wow, you're a long way from home. Or I guess if that wasn't home, then where did you grow up in Arkansas?
Well, I did. So I guess it depends on a long way from home. It depends on where you grew up from here.
Yeah, I guess so. So what did you major in college? Was it
Marketing, finance.
Perfect. Cool. Yeah, I kind of assumed that, but sometimes somebody will major in one thing and then end up finding themselves on a completely new path later.
They do. No, I actually got to use my degree.
Absolutely. That's cool. So what does financial planning look like here in South Carolina?
Well, it's pretty much an individual thing. So if you ask 10 people other than me what their definition of financial planning would be, you'd probably get 10 different answers.
Why do you think that is?
Because everybody has something that's more important than the other person, or they have not more important, but they have an issue. Maybe this person has a need for investment advice. This person might need tax advice. This person might need, they can't figure out how to start a business. So what's important about financial planning to you?
Right. So it's a very personal field. Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself actually establishing that connection with your clients in the sense of more than just being their financial planner, but being someone who they can turn to if they just have questions in general? Is it kind of a 24-hour job more than just hey, I work a 9 to 5?
Well, you have a lot of people that want to ask a lot of other questions. That's why we always say it's but when you deal and you work with somebody in their personal information, you can't help but kind of get to know them a little bit personally. But that's obviously I have lots of friends, and some of them I have knowledge about their personal information, and some of them I have lots of friends that don't. So it's kind of like going to your minister and asking them religious questions. It's not real comfortable to turn around and tell everybody else all of your thoughts after you just confess to a priest.
Right.
Did you want to see your priest at a party?
Right. Yeah, probably not.
Not necessarily.
Right.
When he just said, "Hey, you said you weren't going to do that anymore."
Yeah, there's a line where you have this platonic relationship where you're just friends, but then
I do have some friends that cross over and that are clients, and I've got some that I don't see anymore, but professionally.
Right. Okay. Cool. So you talked about personal needs, people's personal needs.
Yep.
What are some of those personal needs? You kind of talked about it with okay, if you need tax problems or investments, and how do they change throughout the season? Tax season's right around the corner. So I understand that probably is a busy season for you. Mm-hmm. We even talked about that a little bit on the phone. Mm-hmm. How does that change over time, and how does that workload change, and how does that even carry over into your normal life?
Well, surprisingly, the work doesn't really change, but it is very seasonal. You have issues throughout that we have to do throughout the year that you have to address. Obviously, taxes, after the end of the year, for those of us that are, if you're a tax filer, you have to get it in by a certain period of time. And so that comes with, really all you're doing is tallying up what happened last year. So a lot of the actual planning and implementing goes on during the history of the last year, because you're just tallying what you did last year, and then telling people what you did or didn't do for taxes. So, planning wise, majority of the planning is in the current year that we're dealing with. So here we are in 2024 doing taxes for 2023, but we're really planning for taxes this year or the future. And so, when you think about a CPA or an accountant, really, if you don't sit down with your CPA or accountant on a regular basis throughout the year, they're not doing any planning. They're just counting what you did at the end of the year. So it's very different. event, even though it just kind of, you think about it that way. It's just ironic that we talked about our CPA is going to do our taxes. We'll plan with them, but how do you plan after the events have all occurred?
Right. Interesting. So tax season, obviously, like I said, you said it's seasonal work. It's a lot of planning. What about the investment side of things?
Yeah, I mean, the investment side is a day-to-day activity.
Okay.
Reviewing market activities, earnings, corporate results.
Is it true that there's patterns to that? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah, patterns. Yeah.
Patterns, really? Wow.
The whole universe was patterns, frequencies.
Yeah, pretty much. I think you hear all these conspiracies and blah 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 about, like, to somebody like me, I don't know a lot about the financial industry at all. So when you hear social media influencers talking about, well, this pattern of this stock or this investment, is about to go up, you don't really know who you can believe at that point. So where's that line different for a financial advisor or a financial planner?
Well, I think you get a little numb to all the schemes out there, and some are legal and some aren't.
Right.
It's very easy to create a problem, and you happen to have the solution. They do that in business all day long. And so, a lot of the people say, well, this drug or that drug's going to really, really do well. And they, you don't know.
Yeah.
So sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
So, the number one thing about investing is that you can do all your research, you try to figure out what are facts, and it's the unknowns that you can't plan for.
Right.
And so, really what you're really doing is having a contingency plan for when it doesn't go right. Then what do you do? Because it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. That's the only thing I can guarantee.
Right.
There's no investment I can guarantee. No results. It's just not going to happen.
Right. Ultimately, it's still it's still a guess.
Right.
Almost.
You're just planning for the inevitable. Option A, option B, option C. What's going to happen.
Right.
And we don't know which one, but when they do, we have the plan.
Cool. So do you
I hate
think
to use the word plan?
Yeah. Right. So you talk a lot about like you said, you can plan as much as you want. You can, but inevitably you're planning for something that is uncertain.
Right. That's right.
And you can have all the facts straight, but there can always be a turn.
That's right.
Do you think having those skills in your profession carries over to your life? I mean, people...
It's the only reason I do what I do.
Really?
Well, I mean, one of the things I always say is, what attracted me is when you begin to read tax law or investment theories or how to do things, and then you go ask people and you really find out if you have information and you ask them a question and they can't answer that, but yet they want to do something for you, then are you going to hire them right away? No, probably not. Yeah. Right. You're just looking at them like, all right, this guy's a goon,
right,
or gal, and you're going to move on. Well, over time, what happens is people become very convinced that they know the answer, but they have no clue that they don't know the answer. And so, ultimately, my whole objective was, if I can do it well for myself, then I could probably give that knowledge to other people. And you got to understand, I'm not saying I'm great. I'm just saying, we have some winners, we have some losers. It's a batting average. You're trying to do a good job to help people navigate through the financial world without making mistakes. And if you can help them minimize the mistakes, then I can justify my worth and my fee.
Right.
And as long as they feel we're a better team together, they're glad to pay the fee. If they realize that for whatever reason they don't like the way my style is, or we don't communicate well, and that just happens sometimes, then that's okay.
Again, right? Yeah, it varies person to person. It's a personal experience.
Yeah, last thing I want to do is business with somebody that doesn't want to do business with me.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's pretty universal. I think overall
it is. It gets real stressful when people don't admit it.
Right, especially
and try to force it.
Yeah, they're almost desperate, and sometimes
correct.
Right.
They don't want to change anything. They're too lazy or whatever the case is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I want to push back a little bit here and talk about the need for a financial planner.
Okay.
I've never even thought of having a financial planner.
Okay.
Because I'm 17 years old, right?
Right,
About to turn 18.
right.
I don't need it. What does your client base look like typically? Is it big business, corporate? Are there people who are just kind of your everyday average Joes working a 9 to 5 who have a financial planner for something?
Well, you can have you can desire a need, and that's probably the case with a lot of people. They desire to have a lot of money be managed. They desire to have different events. So the hardest thing about life is you want a Ferrari, but you can't have one.
Right.
So again, I'm not saying you can't have a financial planner. You can, but do you really need one?
Right.
And so the hardest thing about is if you have money and you have a path and you're having some success and you're doing well, but you don't have time to do the things to plan, or maybe you don't have the skills or the tools to just to kind of navigate through some of these questions and how to really put it together, then you can. But if you don't have any money to pay somebody to do it, then obviously it's really just like the Ferrari issue.
Right.
You're trying to think, so a lot of people have a lot of debt. Get a lot of people call and say, hey, I've got my credit cards and I can't get out of the debt, and I've got my school loans, and I've got this habitual problem with spending money that I can borrow but I can't make. What can you do for me? And again, the answer is nothing. That's not our forte. We're not debt specialists. So if somebody calls and says they just hit the lottery and they have all kinds of it's the first $1 billion payout, I'd love to help them, and I can help them, but we're probably going to need more than just me.
Right.
So it's about knowing your clientele. For you, young people have a real problem. Education in this country is terrible, and teachers are out there working and teaching our topics at the college level and on into professional level, and they don't really know the law, or they don't know the rules, and it's very difficult for for students, especially, to really get true, really good information. It's much easier to believe a lie than it is the truth.
Absolutely.
It's just human nature.
Right. You did the first thing you're told, or the thing that seems best to you, even. So
your best friend did it.
Right.
He told me.
Yeah. Right. It's like monkey see,
he
monkey
did it.
do. It's
yeah.
Absolutely.
As long as somebody goes first, they're good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not necessarily the best way to go.
Right. So I'm hearing that TurboTax is a good option for those who need it, basically.
TurboTax, I don't know anything about TurboTax.
Wow, okay. So
I know it's a software package that does tax returns.
right.
You can pay for it. You can authorize them to steal all your information, and you give them information that is very personal and privileged.
Right.
And their privacy policies allow them to use it however they want. So I don't really use it.
So privacy policies, I want to talk about that and how that ethical kind of I guess ethical. Would you call it ethical, having privacy policies?
Well, ethical is maybe a different word than privacy policies.
Right. Okay.
They can be ethical, or they can be just contractual. So they can be either, and a lot of times they are not the same. So privacy policies are just their policies about what they do with your information that you give them, and it can be very unethical.
Right.
Take your credit card.
Right.
Do you think they use your information ethically?
And I think there's just this risk with, like you said, online software.
So you might even sign their agreement allowing them power of attorney to use your signature,
which is ridiculous.
And again, that's why I say, is it ethical? No.
Right. Yeah. So where's the there's a pretty fine line between privacy.
Do they encumber it in a privacy policy and statements of all the things that they do, so that you won't read it and you'll just accept it and go on, just like you do with every app you download?
Pretty much.
So that's why I say privacy policies, so forth, aren't necessarily ethical.
Right. Okay.
In our business also, you go to a brokerage firm or an investment firm or a bank, and they have a privacy policy, and they say they share your information with their counterparts that they do business with. Well, that could be Google. That could be all kinds of hosts of vendors that you just authorize them to use.
So it might not even just be other banks for things like CDOs or investing.
Yeah, it could be their computer software company.
Wow.
So there's all kinds of things that you have to ask yourself whether or not. So that's why I say ethics is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Ethics and privacy have nothing to do with each other.
Interesting.
Ethics come from God, as I said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think. I mean, and I agree with that. There are people that don't, but I absolutely think that ethics cannot exist without God.
They can use the term ethics in government, but that's not the term government is an oxymoron to say that they're establishing ethics.
Right.
But yet,
when really
in our business, we have to do ethics class and ethics training and things that are ethical according to their contractual world, and what they contract as ethics
is not really
right.
all the time.
So many times that's the case. We've had lots of people that work for the federal government or do different things and realize that they have to quit their job because they're they took an oath to say the Constitution, but yet the federal government's making them do something that's unconstitutional.
I think that's a really interesting output on that, and I think depending on specifically with this field and even applied outside into just general life, privacy policies and ethics do have a big difference. I say ethics because, like I told you before, I've kind of, in my experience, it's been like therapeutic ethics or like lawyer-client confidentiality. But there is a difference. There's a big difference between financial planning and being a lawyer.
Yep. There's a statute under what they call HIPAA.
Okay.
That is, that deals with the medical information about yourself. Right. And, they have HIPAA violations and HIPAA laws and penalties and a whole slew of things that go along with HIPAA. But yet, you put up your information and they sell it to their vendors or they give it to their vendors and it goes on and on and on. And so is it ethical? No.
Right.
Not in my book.
So privacy policies aren't always ethical.
No, they are not.
Yeah, and I think people just it's so common now. I mean, I've even caught myself do this. You'll go on a website and you'll see things about cookies. And you're like, okay, accept all cookies. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
That information's going to so many
just
different
because you
companies.
tell me you're doing it, you won't let me tell you no because I can't. I'm chasing it with the mouse.
Exactly.
I don't want to accept it.
It's almost like they don't give you an option anymore.
No,
I think, and the reason I talk about
you always have an option. They just lead you to believe that you want to do what you want to do so bad that you have to do it.
Right. Exactly.
And you always have an option.
You do. You always have an option out. It would be.
They're not the only choice. You can just choose not to do it.
Yeah. They just make it a lot easier to choose to do it sometimes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the option that most people should choose.
Right. And I think, again, it goes back to the difference between privacy policies and ethics.
Yeah, if everybody does it, let's just keep doing it.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, because if everybody does it, it must be okay for me.
Yeah, exactly.
I talked about TurboTax. I know that probably kind of caught you off guard maybe a little bit because we didn't talk about that at all before. I learned something this year about how TurboTax free is not actually free. I used TurboTax last year to file my taxes because I've been working now. Obviously, I get my W-2 and everything. And it was quite simple, but there was this entire scandal a couple years back about how TurboTax free isn't really free. And they ultimately lead people down this rabbit hole of finding of every single thing that this company can throw at you to make you spend money even though you don't have to. So it's always advertised. You've seen those ads like TurboTax free is free.
Right. You're just talking about the 1040, right?
I think so. Yeah. The 10. Yeah. And I've seen a lot about that. And that's just the most basic level of filing your taxes. Like I don't have property. I don't have assets and things like that I have to take into account. So for me, it was really easy to access, right?
Well, the basic 1040 NR, 1040 EZ, 1040 SR, or the 1040. All those are just the. Yeah, it just depends on what your status is.
Okay.
So if you're a non-resident alien, or you're a senior, or your EZ means you don't have enough income. Those are all just forms online that are free that people can just fill out.
You just fill them out with the guy.
Yeah, I mean that you can. What people have been trained to believe is that it's really complicated.
Right, and that is kind of what I'm getting at is like.
It's not.
Right. It doesn't have to be.
A third grader can do it.
And they advertise this free, and people go searching for it and they don't find it because they bury it.
Yeah. A better thing for me to say is I'm not I'm what they call I just do forms. I fill out forms. I'm not a attorney, so I can't give you tax advice. I'm not a CPA where I have an oath to the certified public administration or whatever they call themselves. I'm not an enrolled agent. I don't have an oath to the federal government's Title 20 under IRS. We just when you fill out a form, they have the whole definitions of everything that you do, just like in investments. All you have to do is go read the definitions a little bit, just clear about. Never assume that you know what you're doing. So read the definitions.
Yeah, figure it out for yourself.
But the people at TurboTax aren't doing anything but helping you not read the directions. Therefore, you don't even know if they're charging you for something ancillary, or even if you're filling the form out correctly.
Right. Interesting.
It's very interesting. It's very sad, actually.
It is, and I think,
and that's our education system. If they wanted to help kids today, they would teach them how to do and think freely for themselves.
Rather than just basically push.
Now, don't get me wrong. Whether you ought to know something about it, but if you just don't want to do it and you want to hire somebody competent, and if it's okay to get paid to do something.
Mm-hmm. So
if you don't have any money, who really cares?
Yeah, I mean, money keeps the world running.
Well, and if you're looking for free, there's nothing cheaper than just going on to IRS and pulling up the codes and filling out. It's really, really, really simple. Mm-hmm. Probably more simple than most people ever knew.
I learned this concept in economy this year, and it talked about how nothing is really free.
Nothing is free.
Even if it's a free form to fill out, is it really free because you're sacrificing your time, where you could be doing something else? Everything costs something.
It does.
Everything has an opportunity cost.
Mm-hmm. Did you read Milton Friedman?
We did not.
That's too bad.
Why do you say that?
Because everybody should read him.
Who is that? I'm not.
Well, he's got a great book called No Free Lunch.
Okay, and that's about that concept, just super in depth.
Yeah, Milton Friedman is one of the best economists there is.
Well, interesting. So I think when talking about financial planning and talking about others in your profession, it raises me the question: do you think you're a professional in your field? And you told me you surprised me with the answer on this one.
It's really hard to, again, the word profession and professional and all that. I mean, obviously I take it pretty serious. We've got a pretty substantial group of clients, pretty substantial net worth. Mm-hmm. We've got a pretty substantial amount of assets that we physically manage on a day-to-day basis. So, I mean, it would not be fair to say I wasn't professional.
Right.
So, I take it very serious. My pastime is reading about my business.
Okay.
I hate to say it. It's just it's very addictive when you get into it.
Why do you think that is?
I think we're all searching for answers. We're all searching for something. And if you like what you do and enjoy it, you work hard at it, and it doesn't feel like work. You've heard that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like if you like your job, you never work a day in your life.
So there's aspects of it that I don't like, and just like any other business model, if you're a business owner, you try to lay out the things that you're really good at and you enjoy, and you try to lay out the things that you have to do that you don't enjoy. And you determine whether or not you're ever going to get good at it or not. And if you're not, then you find somebody that comes in and they enjoy doing the parts that you don't enjoy. Then you got a magic formula, because you can do the things you like and they can do the things that they like, and you got a win-win situation, and that makes your business thrive.
Right.
It's really hard to find that combination because people just flat out lie.
I think that goes
they're more comfortable lying than they are telling the truth. Especially to themselves, because
it's easier. I think it ultimately is easier.
It seems that way. Yeah. I don't know what the real reason is.
Yeah, I mean it's
I'm not a very good. My opinions. I mean, I probably am pretty good about pegging people, but I don't have a degree in psychology. That
might have to be a future episode.
Not for me.
So I think with talking about your passion, like I said, it's kind of like the old saying, you never work a day in your life if you like your job. And I think in some ways that's true. Like if I could just record videos of landscape for the rest of my life, I don't feel like I'd ever work a day, right?
Right, but there's always going to be the things that you don't like to do. So it's gonna, yeah.
Yeah. I think that, like you
It's
said,
very difficult to have all the cake and eat it.
Yeah, exactly. And there, like you said, there's this formula.
But there's
magic formula.
yeah. There's things that you're just going to find really passionate about.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
and there's multiple things. You know me personal enough to know that I find passion in a lot of things I do. I sometimes just enjoy the doing new things. And sometimes you get into it and you're like, yeah, I don't like this, and then you quit and you just drop it and leave it. But it's the activity of going and seeking out whether or not you enjoy
You're
it.
going to enjoy it or not.
It's
Right.
part of the journey, yeah, and it's fun.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I think
And that's where financial planning is. I mean, every time you buy a new stock, every time you do something new, every time you get a new client, every time you got to solve a new puzzle or create a new way that you can lower somebody's taxes or explain to them why they don't pay taxes. Any of that stuff is very interesting.
And you're just seeking that out and having the people do the parts that you don't like.
And it's fun for us to find ways to share with people. And then when they come in and then they learn something and they're like, wow, no one's ever told me that before. Or no one's ever done it this way before. I wonder why they didn't do that. And I'm like, I don't know. But it's fun to see them, evolve. So, yeah, there's a lot of enjoyment there.
Absolutely. So we talked briefly about how your personal experience, and not so much experience, but more of your reasoning for wanting to be a financial advisor, being just because it's your passion and it's you do what you do because of the way you think. Do you think at all in going into that profession your thinking changed as you learned more? Were there things that conceptually just kind of like flipped for you? Or I know it's kind of a loaded question, but
no, every day they flip. Every
Really?
time you find out something new and you thought you were right on track, and then you read something or you find a new law that you didn't know before, and it's a roadblock and it flips on you. And it's just when you think you've got it down. Have you ever heard of Congress? A president.
right.
So whether they have the authority,
executive branch.
whether they have authority to do something or not, and it may not make any difference to me in my real world, but the threat of it can really change. 330 million people in this country, plus another 50 to 60 million illegals. I mean, that's nearly 400 million people in this country that these people have the power to manipulate and to put fear or scare tactics and just flip your world all upside down right away. So they've done that with privacy policies and laws and the threat of laws and
Right.
threat of prosecutions, and then sometimes it comes up to be nothing burger, and sometimes they tell you what it's this way, and then when they get done writing the code, it's entirely something different. Or they tell you what it is when they pass it, and then they let their underlings, all the people in Washington that go write the law or the publications or the procedures, they change it every year. So it's really just a scam.
Ultimately, I think what this podcast is about is learning how people's minds change and how people in different professions and with different experiences and opinions are different from one another. And it seems like an easy question to answer, but I've really had an interest in experiencing and talking to different people in the sense of learning how simple things, simple concepts in their profession impact their personal life or their opinions on anything, and how they function and how they problem solve, with a main emphasis in problem solving, because I think no matter what, everybody experiences their own unique problems, and you have to overcome them. And I think with the artist, the first episode I did of this podcast was with an artist, and she talked about how like her creative process and working outside of the box plays a huge role in how she views life. Because if you can't go one way and you can't go around it, you can't go over it, you'll dig a hole under it.
Isn't that working in the box?
Why do you say that?
Well, you just said you're trying to figure out how you can't go around it. You can't go, and you said she was working out of the box. Is she trying to get in the box?
It's not a literal box. She's.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Well, my point is isn't that funny? That, you use an analogy where you're describing her in the box or in a maze. Mm-hmm. How are you going to get out of that area?
I don't know. You stumped me with that question. I think more what I'm trying to get at here, rather than figurative.
This podcast is never going to end.
Figurative or literal.
There's always going to be another podcast
mazes.
on that.
There is. There's tons of different ones, but I think, like we talked about, this is a school project.
We have to go back and replay that, see if you're really describing a box.
I don't know if I was describing a box or not.
Well, you're talking about going around it, or out of it, or under, digging a hole out of it.
I was thinking conceptually about like getting through a problem.
Okay,
like,
there you go.
Right. So are you getting through a problem in a normal way, or are you using our artist, using her creativity to find a new way? Do you think problem-solving skills, or you're analyzing patterns, even though knowing they're ultimately still just guesses, does that impact your thinking?
To survive today, you have to do it as a human being.
Analyze patterns?
Analyze everything.
People?
Everything. If people is included in everything, then the answer is yes.
Why do you say that?
Well, do you not think so?
I don't necessarily disagree with you.
Okay.
I think you need to analyze a lot of things. I think
you do it and you don't even realize you're doing it. And so there's people that are really good at it, and they walk in and they say, what was your mom what was she wearing when she walked out down the road? Did you notice that? You probably wouldn't get a job at the FBI.
Probably not, but there are some people who you think are just subconsciously good at that.
That's right. So again, the way we solve problems and perceive the world is very important.
And you think,
when you say something, it means a lot of the times it means something very literal, or you're saying figuratively. And so again, it's funny how we use everything's figuratively, or like we said, you just push the button, accept their privacy policy. So we need to ask more questions.
Always ask questions. Questions
and don't necessarily, if they answer, you don't necessarily be satisfied with their answer.
Would you consider yourself inquisitive?
Extremely.
But you also said earlier how you find answers on your own a lot. Do you ask yourself questions and then find their answers?
All day long.
And that's your job.
All day long.
There it is. 9 to 5. I guess that's the ultimate goal. There's
only one person that I probably talk to more, I don't know about that, than myself. And I probably say God doesn't get as much attention as I do.
Well,
I just talk to myself all the time about a problem, or a client's problem, or what I need to do about that.
Mm-hmm. And so that
could be literally talking my way through it to try to, like you said, find the maze or get out of the box or get in the box, whatever the case is. Yeah.
And that plays a role into your personal life.
It does. It absolutely does. Because if I'm trying to get out of the box and I can't get out of the box, how am I going to do that for clients? Or if I'm trying to get in the box and I can't get in the box, how am I going to do that for clients?
And so that process for you would be...
And take it very personally.
Right. That process for you, getting out of the box, or what I should say, talking about getting past a problem.
That's right.
Let's get away from the box analogy, because you stumped me earlier when I was talking about around or over.
What made you think you needed to file a return? With who? TurboTax?
Yeah, TurboTax. Oh, you're sorry.
Who told you needed to file a return with TurboTax?
I was just told. I didn't ask questions.
Are you sure you needed to file a return?
I'm not totally positive, but I got about $62 back. So
that's probably the taxes that you paid in.
Probably so.
Probably didn't even need to have them withhold because you probably weren't even necessarily going to pay.
And that's what you're here for.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, so again, people just have to begin to think about what they're doing better.
So I think I agree. I do. I agree. And I think that there's kind of a hierarchy to it, though. I think for some people, there are certain things that are their values. And each individual person is going to study or be good at these random things. Like you said, I could not tell you what my mom was wearing in the drive-thru.
When I threw a paper out when I was 10 years old, and I filed a paper tax return when I did to get all the money that I sent in because my dad told me I'd probably need to pay quarterly estimates. And then when I figured out that he was telling me what to do, and I'm going in and paying taxes in that I didn't need to pay, just to get them back at the end of the year.
So it was just a useless vicious cycle.
I'm just saying, I mean, it takes a while before you really have confidence in asking questions until you are satisfied that you got the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard because even when you realize it, you're like, oh, dadgummit, I did it again. I was satisfied with an answer that wasn't correct. Mm-hmm. And so it's just life. Right.
So I'm starting to, and correct me if I'm wrong on these not so much accusations or assumptions, but from what I'm gathering, you ask a lot of questions and you get a lot of answers, and you can either get them from other people or you find them on your shelf if they can't help you.
Correct. That's usually what I get paid to do, is go find the answers.
Right. And so I think, like you said, that applies to your life as well. If you don't know how to get out of the box, you'll find a way, and you'll ask enough questions and you'll figure out how to get out of the box.
Some people were trying to get out of a box and didn't even know they weren't in the box.
Right. Yeah. Some people don't know they're in a box. And I think you I'm trying to formulate my thoughts to make this make sense. I think asking a lot of questions, getting a lot of answers, and that working for you is personal. And I don't think it works for everybody. Would you say you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, I don't think anybody asks questions at all.
What does that mean?
People go through life, and that's probably their reason we're today where we are, even in society. They don't ask questions about what they're doing, and they don't think about repercussions. They don't have concerns. And again, I think that's tough. So if you find somebody that can do that, or does do that, or you begin to do that, you should really embrace that trait.
Ask questions. Be inquisitive.
That's right.
So do you think anybody could do what you do?
Sure. Everybody should be able to do what I do. So, anybody can do what I do. I would love to be a fishing guide. I mean, then I think, well, wait a minute. I really just want to go fishing. I don't take people with me. You can do whatever you want to do, and you'll find pleasure in all kinds of things. So there's no doubt that anybody can do what I do. My job is not that hard. Mm-hmm. It's really not hard at all.